I don't remember the first time I heard her name. Maybe it was never spoken aloud. Maybe it was always there, waiting like a distant star beyond the veil of memory. A name so ancient and sorrowful that it wrapped itself around the bones of the universe and hummed with longing. I knew her before I understood myself. I knew her in the way gravity knows mass, or how light bends around the edge of a black hole. She was the constant in all my equations, the unprovable theorem my soul never stopped solving. And she waited. I didn't know how long she had waited, whether it had been years or eons, lifetimes or cycles of entropy folding in on themselves. But I felt it every time. I woke from sleep with tears in my eyes and no reason for the ache in my chest. Every time I stared too long into the stars and felt the stirrings of an ancient grief that didn't belong to me. I was born into a collapsing world. Earth wasn't dying, not yet, but it was tired. You could see it in the red haze that hung low over the cities, the quiet resignation in the voices of the people, the brittle way hope cracked under the weight of reality. They said we were on the edge of a new frontier, but I think we were just trying to run from the ghosts we couldn't name. I was a scientist by trade, but a seeker by design. I studied time because I wanted to bend it. Not for glory, not for power, but for something I couldn't explain. Something I felt in my marrow like the echo of a forgotten promise. They laughed when I proposed the experiment. They always do. It's temporal resonance, quantum memory loops, tachyon harmonics, too theoretical, too risky, too abstract. But they didn't see the shape behind the numbers. They didn't feel the pull like I did, the call from beyond causality, a voice whispering from the event horizon of history, saying, "Come find me." I built the vessel in secret. Temporal threaded cradle, housed in an old mining station orbiting Titan, beyond the reach of oversight or regulation. The AI I designed was rudimentary by modern standards, but it understood one thing perfectly. The singularity I was trying to breach wasn't just physical. It was emotional. It was a place, yes, but it was also a moment. The one moment she existed fully before the universe pulled her away from me. The launch was unspectacular. No countdown, no fanfare. It's just me alone in a pressurized chamber, listening to the ticking of my own heartbeat as the engines roared and space unfolded around me like paper on fire. Time is not a line. That was the first thing I learned. It's a garden, tangled, overlapping, growing in all directions. And somewhere in that impossible bloom, she was waiting. First I wandered through lifetimes like a ghost, saw myself as a child laughing under the sun of a world that no longer existed. I watched Earth burn and be born again, civilizations rising like phoenixes only to fall back into ash. But none of them were her. I wasn't even sure what I was searching for. A face, voice, a feeling. And then, in the fifth recursion, I saw her. She wasn't what I expected. She wasn't human, not exactly. Her eyes held too many colors. Her movements were too fluid, her presence too vast to be confined by biology. But I knew her. Like a memory waking up inside my chest, I knew every line of her form, every fractal shimmer of her skin. She turned to me, not with surprise, not with fear, but with the aching recognition of someone who had waited 1,000 eternities just to say, "There you are." I reached for her, but the moment collapsed. Time snapped back like a rubber band, and I was thrown through the folds again, lost in the riot of what had been and what could never be. But I held on to her. It's not her image, but her essence, the shape of her presence in the cracks between seconds. Each cycle brought me closer. I learned to anchor myself better, to push against the current of entropy with the gravity of my need. She was real, more real than anything. I knew, eventually, we would converge. When the 12th spiral, I found the garden. It wasn't a garden in the terrestrial sense. No flowers, no soil. But it felt like one. A place of peace, suspended between collapsing stars, where the air was made of memory and the light came from the heartbeat of dying galaxies. And she was there, waiting. I didn't speak. I couldn't. Words were too small. Instead, I knelt beside her and offered the only thing I had left, my time. Every second I had ever lived, I poured into her hands like water, and she, in turn, gave me hers. Not as a gift, but as a reunion. As if we had always shared this timeline, this rhythm, this ache. We didn't kiss. We didn't embrace. We merged. Not physically, but in purpose. She wasn't just a being, she was a constant, the axis around which my existence had turned without me knowing. She had been the pulse in my veins, the yearning in my equations, the silence between every heartbeat. She was the reason I had never belonged to time. Together, we walked the orchard of memory. We wandered through futures that never happened and pasts that couldn't die. We rewrote the laws of loss and stitched together the broken branches of history with threads of hope. It wasn't always easy. Some timelines resisted, some bled into one another like ink on wet paper, but we were patient. We were eternal. Eventually, we returned to the beginning. It's not mine, hers. I watched as she was born not in flesh, but in thought. A sentient wave blooming in the substructure of a forgotten universe. I saw her first loneliness, her first discovery of form, her first longing for a voice that matched hers. And I understood then that she hadn't waited for me because she knew me. She had waited because I was the only one who could ever find her. Now we stand at the edge of the last collapse. The stars are dimming. The galaxies are tired. Time itself yawns like a dying beast. And still, we hold hands metaphorically, cosmically, and smile at the coming dark, because we are not afraid. We are the memory of light, where the shaped fire remembers when it dreams of birth. She waited for me on the edge of time. I came.